G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Sharon Koifman from DistantJob based in beautiful Montreal, Canada. Thanks for your time today.
It is an absolute pleasure, Troy.
So how we know each other. So who was it that reached out on your side?
It's probably Desiree, right?
Yeah.
My PR lady,
Yeah.
and my PR awesomeness, and she reached out and got the interview.
And here we are. So
yeah,
you've got a bit of a business background. You've had 3 businesses to date. Do you want to just give us, tell the audience a bit about those businesses and particularly what you're focusing on now with DistantJob?
So yes, I've been in business, legitimately in business. When I was a kid, I had a whole bunch of funny attempts at things, but I had legitimate business for about 18 years. And I ran a web hosting company and an outsourcing company. And then after that, in between, usually when you sell a company, yet you're still not very satisfied, you become a consultant for a little bit. And then it kind of transitioned into DistantJob. One of the common things that shared in all my businesses that I ran all of them from my computer. And this, I'm not talking about some kind of affiliate program or a little quick cash scheme or something. I'm talking about full operations with products and people all over the world still sitting in front of a computer managing them.
Right. Yeah. And that was 18 years ago, so 2003. So it was just after the tech wreck that you really got into this space. And I think every year,
pretty much with the dot-com crash,
yeah.
I pretty much started my business.
Great. So tell us specifically about DistantJob, what it does and how it makes money.
So we are a very unique recruitment agency that specializes in remote employees. We actually are the first remote recruitment agency in the world. I know it as a fact because we trademarked as the term remote recruitment agency about 7-8 years ago. And we specialize in going all over the world, finding the best and the smartest people and soliciting them from established companies and enticing them with the concept of working at home. And those individuals work remote. They work remote for North American technology companies usually. And they work as real full-time, permanent, career-driven individuals. So it's not freelancers. It's not outsourced individuals. It's real employees that we just got them to work remote.
Okay. And do you provide support for those employees on how to transition to work remotely as well, out of interest?
So I'm a best-selling writer in the discussion of remote management, but I give as much data to the clients and to the candidates as I can. But we also, part of our service is managing HR. So we really do a lot of hand-holding in the beginning for the candidate to be to gain the experience, to get more exposure and how to be a real remote employee, even if they were in the market doing freelancing and outsourcing and everything. We want to transition them into the mentality of full-time, permanent, career-driven individuals.
Yeah. So I guess it would be challenging for some people jumping out of that old traditional style of turning up to an office 9 to 5 to then having to work from home. And it is, it can be a little bit difficult for those not used to it.
It's intimidating. It's a little scary. It is a transition from the standard traditional method of doing things. But at the end of the day, the science shows that people that work at home are more productive. They're happier. They're more independent. So there's a lot of already data, especially with COVID, but even before COVID. I did the research already for 5 years, and there's like MIT Sloan has done research showing that people that are remote are happier and more independent. So yes, it's tough because it's the transitional mentality, but I think anybody can do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask pre-COVID. We'll talk about what effect COVID's had. Obviously, I think it would be quite good for you. But pre-COVID, I assume you would have seen a gradual incline of businesses being more open to remote working, and because of that old traditional mindset of if I can't see you, you're not working. I think that's been breaking down over the last 10 or so years pre-COVID, and obviously COVID was a huge boost to breaking down that barrier.
Huge. I mean, my biggest obstacle before COVID is, even until today, it's an obstacle. But before COVID, was not finding the amazing candidates that the world has to offer. Was to convince companies that, hey, this is a good option, and but you said something that it triggered me to on the topic that you said, that you're right. A lot of people thought that when you can't see something, it doesn't work. You shouldn't be in a situation that you can't see. With today's Zoom and technology and webcam, you should turn on the webcam and talk to the people exactly like you would in an office. So you should see them as just as much.
Yeah, and it's win-win for everyone. The businesses are saving on having to rent out expensive office space. The employees not having to travel. Saving a lot of time and cost, a shit ton of money, not having to travel into an office every day and all that time. I mean, some people are commuting 2 or 3 hours a day.
It's a huge boost for everyone. The cost of office space, the cost of electricity, the cost of managing individuals. Many benefits and services are not as necessary anymore when people are sitting at home. Of course, the huge save of time, the fact that people don't need to stop a project in the middle because they have to go home, which is one of the biggest destroyers of productivity, is that need to cut in the middle and not finish your project that at home you have a lot more flexibility on. There is a huge amount of benefits, environmental, productivity, financial, for the remote model.
Yep. And so how do you charge? Do you charge the business more of a traditional recruitment fee, or do you have a different model?
So there is different models, but our main focus model is HR and recruitment. So it's a monthly recurring charge. We take care of all the bills. The reality is, when you have a distributed team, this is not people that just work in the United States. When you have full distributed teams, it's good to deal with. It's good to deal with a company that will take care of all the employment and all the contracts and everything on an international basis. So we just charge a small flat recurring fee every month on top of the salary, and all bonuses, all raises, everything goes to the employee, because we want you to motivate and to empower them.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And so 2003, when you started out your first of those 3 businesses, so how old were you when you decided to make the jump to running your own businesses?
So it was plus or minus. I was in university, so it was what is the exact official date of me starting is not clear, because when you transition from the hobby to the real business is a very questionable situation. But suddenly you start collecting more and more clients, and you go, this is real. So I don't actually know when is my official real date. The date that I have on the paper is just when I incorporated the company.
Yep. So how old were you? You were early 20s?
24, 25 about.
Yeah, great.
Maybe even 23. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I need to look into that.
And do you have some key numbers you can share with the audience to illustrate the growth of DistantJob, to give some context?
So we have been growing amazingly by 30-40% every year for at least 7-8 years. We've been growing a lot, and it always amazes me, because I always, when I grow a certain amount, I'm like saying, I'm happy with the growth, but why am I trying to grow proportionately? But it's pretty magical that every year, because I have more funds and because I have more marketing power, the company grows in that percentage. And at this moment, we grew to 42 employees. That's internal. That's not the external people that work.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
In 12 years. That's great.
It's a nice business. It's healthy.
Yeah. And did you start out 12 years ago just on your own? So you went 1 FTE to 42 now?
Yep. I started on my own transitioning from doing some consulting for certain gigs. My first exit was not a win. So, you still need to pay the bills. You overestimate the value of your company, and you get what you get, and you keep on moving. But at least I felt, as my dad said, there's two ways to get Harvard level business degree: to grind through a business, or to actually get the education.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. Good. Very true.
So I feel like I got an Harvard level education by running the first company.
That's good. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
So when I paid my bills, right, I'm thinking a little bit smaller, but it was a huge, huge step. Twice in both companies. But in the second company, because I was very stressed out about the first company, and the concept of being able to pay your beer money and 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 all the bills and the rent and everything with no stress. I'm talking about small money, $4,000, $5,000 a month. I was the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah.
That was for me my first success. There was clearly a different stages. The second, of course, when I became a millionaire. But I mean, but I didn't notice it as much. I really noticed the day that the balance sheet on a personal level was zero. It was plus like 300, and that was a huge success for me.
Yeah. And
because then you can stay in the business.
That's it.
Right. It's once you can stay in the business, you will eventually figure out to make it successful.
Yeah. And what does success look like to you?
Success. What does success look for me? It looks like enough financial freedom to be able to do anything that you want.
Yep.
It is without purchasing stupid things.
Yeah.
So I don't need to purchase a plane or a helicopter, not yet at least.
Yeah.
But as long as I have a house, a country house, a nice looking car, all the bills for my kids are taken care of, for me, that's success.
Yeah, great. Number one thing you'd recommend in marketing a fast growing business?
In marketing, I first of all recommend that you know your numbers.
Yeah.
This is very, very important, and part of the lesson that I learned from the first company. Understanding your numbers, understanding the acquisition cost of clients, understanding the loss of clients, really knowing your numbers is the number one key to be a great marketer, because then you know how much you can spend on marketing.
Yeah.
And then you can experiment. I believe in experimenting and failing. It works well for me, at least.
Yeah, especially in marketing. I've said before, James McGregor, a friend of mine, was on an earlier episode, I think number 6, from Biteable, and he talks very much about pick 2 or 3 marketing activities a quarter or every 6 months, test them, see what's working, shut off what isn't, and double down on what is. It's just so important. And in this day and age with digital marketing, it's so easy, the measurement, compared to the old traditional print and radio and TV.
So it's very interesting also, because we are right now establishing a new product, which is trying to create a whole bunch of HR tools as added value to our service. We really want to be awesome in HR, as awesome as we are in recruitment. We're already pretty decent, but we want to build all the tools and everything that it seems seamless for the client. But with this new product, the marketing strategy that we're implementing, I've never imagined doing when I started Empire Host, I started DistantJob. Here we're sitting here and we have a specialist testing which services are going to gain the most momentum, and is actually testing things before I'm launching services and before I'm launching products. This is a new way of doing marketing, that marketing before you launch the product, right? And other stuff like crowdfunding and test. I am really, this is beyond me. I'm learning this, and it's very exciting.
Yeah. And how did you fund DistantJob?
Self-funded.
Yep. Great. No other investors, just you all the way?
my brother was involved in my brother was involved in Empire Host and kind of got into Distant Job for a long time. He's a very successful. He runs the biggest office coffee supply in Quebec. So I at least he gave me a seat in his office. So I can say that he was at least an involved investor
Yeah.
a little bit in the beginning of processes.
And if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yes. Yes. I mean, this is the time. I was too early.
Yeah, you were. You were 12 years early, 11 years
I
early.
was like, are you kidding me? Now you asked the question at the right time. If you would ask me 3 years ago, I was like, I could do other cool things, but now it's the time to be a specialist in remote.
Absolutely. Have you, and that reminds me, have you read the book Remote by the guys at Basecamp or 37 Signals?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they started out, was it 20 years or so ago? But from day one, they were remote. Half the team or founders were in Chicago. The other half were in Copenhagen. But that reminds me, like with COVID, did you see a massive bump in the last year in interest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It changes. It's changing my business a lot, and also I'm more in a rush to make sure. Until now, it kind of took it easy. I actually started approximately when they started. My first business. Just my first business was not a hit, and kudos to them that they're doing great. I do have different philosophies in managing remote as they do. We agreed probably on 80-90% of things, but their entire philosophy of you got to pay the salaries like you pay locally is not connected to reality. It's connected to multi-billion-dollar company reality, right? And when you're encouraging people like that, you're really discouraging them from exploring the world.
Yeah.
Because then remote, okay, we'll do in the US because if we're already going to pay salaries. But there's nothing wrong with trying to benefit from lower cost of living, right? As long as you pay fair. Yes. Right. As long as you do right by the people and you treat them with respect and do everything and let those economy grow.
Yep.
And this is the right thing. Claiming that I pay the same salary. I challenge Basecamp. I would like to know how many of their employees are not in the United States with that attitude.
Yeah.
It's great that they're remote, but the idea is to go to the world and to help economies grow. And this is where, and in my opinion, because I'm guess not as a big shot as they are, in my opinion, you need to actually take advantage of the cost of living there without being cheap, without underpaying, but doing right by people.
Pay market wages that are relevant in that country that person is. You may pay 10% above market wages. That's fine, but you don't need
a little above market. Double. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But paying North American, I mean, even North American doesn't make sense because the salary in Montreal, where I am, and the salary in California is completely different. So how do you exactly judge what salary are you going for?
Yeah.
Pay market value a little bit above, treat people with respect. That, in my opinion, how you manage remote people properly.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
The most stressful and always is the choice of staying profitable or not. It's, you want to grow, you want to go into hyper growth. I mean, this year, I can't believe that I'm going back to this reality where I hire a bunch of salespeople. I'm investing in technologies. I'm really spending so much more than I did before because I don't want to lose the momentum of COVID. And suddenly I am not as successful as I remember myself to be, right? Which is okay. I have a company that has real asset value to it, and it's part of the fun. But it's less fun. It's less fun to make less money at an older age than it is when you were young and energetic and everything. You want to say, look, I built something beautiful. Let me enjoy the money. But COVID time is let's go and build something huge.
Yeah,
not
while the
just
sun
big.
shines, you've got to make hay.
That's right. Yes.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
The hardest work for me is surprisingly a biz dev, which is, it's funny, it's my biggest strength.
Yeah.
I am a sales guy. I'm very social, and I'm pretty good at communicating to people what is the value that I'm producing. At the same time, the upward battle of convincing people that remote rocks, that remote is a great solution, has always been very difficult. It's never been difficult to build an amazing recruitment team. We're about 17 people right now, recruiting and kicking some butt. I don't know if I'm allowed to
Yeah, I swear
use
all the
proper
time. Don't
language.
worry.
Kicking some ass, right? But the biz dev, from marketing to sales, has always been a challenge, and a bigger challenge for me, and it comes to marketing, is that so many people are fighting over the same keywords.
Yep.
Right. So I'm fighting over the same keywords as recruitment agencies, outsourcing companies, HR companies. And so the battle for ad space and the battle for ad space and for ad space and organic is quite a pain.
Yeah.
So that has been that is, to answer your question before, that you said, would I do it 3 years ago? That was a real pain to fight that upward battle, because it's hard to win the Google battle. It's hard to win, which we are, because
Yeah.
we're creating such incredible content these days. We're
Mm.
winning the Google battle, but it has been a difficult upward battle.
What have you enjoyed least about managing the fast growth?
I think I kind of mentioned that it is not being as profitable.
Yeah.
Right. It's never fun.
And what do you love most about growing a small business?
The people.
Mm.
The people. I will fight for as long as I can to keep my company a small business mentality. I build a company that can grow so big and still does not require too much employees. And because I love dealing with people, and I like to know that people love working for the company. And if it gets too big, I no longer have um, my thumb on the pulse, right? And that's what I want to keep. So I love the people, and I love uh, hearing that they're really enjoying working for the company.
What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
There have been multiple. First of all, I gain huge appreciation for understanding the numbers, and that was from first company to second company, because first company I was like all selling and marketing and willing and dealing and everything,
No profit.
and I was not actually taking the numbers seriously. So I until today, I believe that understanding your numbers really well is so important. So having a good accountant, or if you can't afford it yet, a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Right. One of the best hire in my company is my accountant, that just gives me the answers exactly I want, not how QuickBooks or the accounting firm. She manipulates it to give me the data the way I want, which is a huge deal. The other transition is for me was appreciating how amazing remote is. I mean, when I started DistantJob, my mentality was, hey, I'm going to get you some incredible cheap labor individuals. I'm all about value. And then very quickly I noticed that, wait a minute, I have access to this huge pool of talent. I'm actually getting better people for that value. And then I start saying value, quality. And about 5 years ago, I started noticing that even if I even if I would pay people to work locally the same salary as an individual in the office, somehow my people are more productive and they're happier.
Yeah.
And then that mental appreciating what I got myself into, how wonderful remote is, that it's not just a game of value, that it's a game of productivity and enjoyment. That was a big evolution in my company.
What's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Managing productivity.
Mm.
This is so important. The ability to produce as much as possible in very little time.
Mm.
This is there's just so many solid tools for against procrastination,
Yep.
which is a big demon for me also.
Mm.
And for and for every person that claims that they work 12 hours a day, they're potentially just producing 2-3 hours a day.
Yep.
And you really and you really need to focus how to get work done.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of bad advice out there
Mm.
for that. I researched a lot for my book. I researched a lot throughout the years how to be as productive as possible, because in remote, there's nobody sitting on you and telling you what to do. Right? You don't even need to switch that video game into an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
When your boss passes by, you can do whatever you want. So you really need to be a self-discipline.
Mm.
And when I did the research, there are just so much data out there and content that is bad, right? The people talking about fear of success and not knowing and writing some and I don't remember what there was, just bad list taking productivity solutions. And I really, especially in my book, I really broke it down to a small amount of productivity solutions that really changed my life.
Yeah.
One of the most recent one, because we don't have all year, but all for hours and hours to discuss this, but one of just the most recent one that I discovered a few years back, like 2-3 years ago, was the ability to create to create the list at the end of the day or at night. So when I wake up in the morning,
Straight into it.
I am just running into it, focused, ready to kick ass. I move all the emails, all the social media on the side, and I go and I conquer that project.
Yeah.
And just those projects I get through them so quickly when I have that mentality.
Absolutely. There's so many value destroying methods out there, or habits, like, people chained to their email inbox all day, not actually moving anything big forward. Have you read Deep Work by Cal Newport?
Deep Work. I think I read it a long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. The first book that inspired me actually was Get Things Done.
Oh yeah,
Right.
David Allen.
Yeah, by David Allen. That was the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
It's far from it. I can't say that I anymore practice most of his advice.
Yeah.
But it gave me infrastructure to build a full productivity strategy to avoid the procrastination.
Yeah, if you haven't read Deep Work, I'd strongly encourage you to. It's a great book, and I'm sure a lot of what he talks about you have already come across or cover. And that reminds me, just going back to the remote working, I think it's about 5 years ago, I read about a Northern American insurance company moved their workforce to remote, all their insurance offices, etc. Which, reading the article, this is great, but then down near the end of the article, they were mentioning how the employees had to have their video camera on at all times, so their manager check in on them. I mean, just what a bunch of bullshit that. It's just, there's no trust. I could not believe this is a massive North American insurance company that they just didn't get it.
So there's so many people that don't get it. I think, in my opinion, that the failure of remote work, 90% of it goes to the management.
Yeah.
Right. It's not even, look, I don't believe the remote is such a big change. I believe that when people send their employees, when managers and bosses send their employees home, they start thinking differently. The bosses, they start doing things that they would never do if they would be in the office. So if you are the boss that likes to meet 5 people a day, hang out, check their work, and fix, motivate, empower, do what you do, and do it for 5 people, you should do exactly the same thing. Turn on Zoom, actually, every 2 screens. It works magical, way better than if physical. You check, you empower, you motivate. You do the same thing that made you a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. There's quite a few things in an office environment, like cubicles and meetings, which are atrocious. And the reason why people in an office environment only produce about 2 hours and 53 minutes of actually working an 8-hour shift. But there's a lot of things that this CEOs and managers have developed, processes that made them big businesses, and they just drop it when it goes remote.
Yeah.
Right. And this is, in my opinion, the biggest failure for remote people. And also, you said outsourcing. Outsourcing, in my book, and many outsourcers will hate me for that. That word is bad. You shouldn't be using freelancers or outsourcer if they work internally for you. Those are full-time, career-driven employees. I keep on repeating those words because it's important. It all starts with language. When the way you treat an outsourced employee, outsourced individual, freelancer, and compare, as I call them, the non-committals, and compare it to your own full-time employee, is very different. It's a change in mentality already. Yes.
Totally agree.
That's my story.
Yeah. Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team? You're up to 42 now. So any wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening, particularly because recruitment's part of what you do?
Well, there's definitely tons of failures, and I think I went through it, not paying attention to numbers. Other failures that I had, especially over the first company, is treating the offshore employees that I had, the remote employees that I had, not like real employees. Back then, when I had employees in India, you could get somebody with knowledge. I wouldn't say specifically skilled, but somebody with knowledge in your technology domain for $500 a month.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was pretty insane prices. And it doesn't matter what price you get, you always try to squeeze. Oh, maybe I can find for 200, 300. Yeah. And when you hire a $500 person and you say, I can afford 10 people for the price of one North American, you also treat him like that.
Yes.
And one of my first lessons learning is, doesn't matter who you hire for the company. And unfortunately, we don't get the same deals anymore. Fortunately, also, those economies all grew because remote people, the economies grew. So you don't get even close to those deals anymore. But whatever deal you do get, you still need to treat the person as if you pay him North American salaries. And that mentality is key. Is key for markets where the cost of living is much lower. Treat them like North Americans. And that was a huge mistake on my part, because I said, I got 10 employees that can do a job of one person. Somebody will get it right. And instead they caused damage. They heard the business. I was a child back then. I did not understand management yet. I was just a loud marketing creative guy. Yeah. But that was a huge learning step for me.
What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth, and particularly because you've got such a diverse remote team?
So one of the key, in general, when you create yourself a specific goal, you have a better chance of achieving it. So a clear specific goal. The problem is, when you talk about culture, everybody likes to use that term. Culture, people like to look at Google and see people on beanbags playing ping pong, having happy hour, and somehow manage to be all productive. And it's like, I want culture like that. Yeah. But that could be culture, but that's not the definition of culture. And when you look for a definition of culture, they're usually so complicated and so unclear. And in my book, Surviving Remote Work, I actually created a clear definition of culture, business culture, a practical definition. And the definition is connection.
Yep.
And it is your definition and the goal. Your goal at the end of the day is to implement activities and strategies that will get the employee connected to the company, employees connected to each other to create a better teamwork. And of course, the third, not as important, is still important, but not as important, surprisingly, is the connection to the client. Right? Once you understand that now you're about to create connection, you don't need the biggest party or the coolest happy hour, the beanbags to create to create connection. You need intimate moments. So for me in the remote environment, surprisingly, I tried an experiment a lot. I tried to make big parties on Zoom. Like everybody was into that, let's replicate it. I done this 4 years ago, but I seen it a lot in COVID time. Let's bring everybody on Zoom, have a drink and big party. And that did not create that connection. What created that connection actually is this little app called Donut on Slack. And Donut forces randomly 2 individuals from my company to hang out for 15 minutes.
I love that. That's fantastic.
And
is that like
huge.
Once a week? You can set it to say once a week.
Once a week.
Everyone
Once
has
a
to
week.
connect for 15 minutes. Oh,
and everybody connects with me also. Everybody gets their turn also. And we talk, and we're just shooting the shit, right? And we're just talking about personal stuff. And the second thing is all my management have one-on-one hangout, having a drink, so for me, the big Zoom parties did not work. But intimate one-on-ones as much as possible, talking about fun, personal stuff, you are developing some major culture. Now, by now, we have a real nerdy, geeky, happy culture in the company. People playing video games with each other. Which when we do game night, we're trying to create games that are social. So some of my employees play video games against each other, but when I'm in there, I would like to play something like Cards Against Humanity, the virtual version. All the board games have a virtual version these days, right? So you can just play board game and socialize and talk about it and make fun of each other and build that trust that when you make fun of the boss, you're not sacrificing your career. And that level of trust is what I call culture.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, great. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Handling balance. So this is interesting because I preach balance in my company, but I am somewhat of a workaholic. So I pay attention. I look at my pulse and I pay attention to my stress level. So if I'm okay, if I'm cool, I'm okay to work more. In this case, I'm a daddy and I'm a stay-at-home daddy, is funny enough. So a lot of my work moved to my kids. But I don't stop. It transitioned. But I am a 12 hours a day kind of guy. But there has to be a proactive social experience in your life. So I book my social experiences, my hangouts, my happy hours, my doing sports, whatever works in my life, I book it as if it's business meetings. So it's a requirement. It was almost part of my non-explicit marriage contract that wifey, I am going out with the boys for a beer once a week. This is it. And she saw exactly what happened when I was on a lockdown in COVID time. And she saw our very loving, very happy husband start being sad. I started being sad. So the work-life balance is, first of all, make your life fun. Yes, you should not work more than 8 hours. There's chances are that you're not going to be productive. Right. And that I push on my employees. First of all, I always tell my employees to pay attention to burnout. Pay attention, be conscious about it. Right. I don't want you to be burned out. Some of my employees are very motivated and very pumped and they want to work more and they want to succeed. And we're a growing company and they want to grow with the company. So I tell them, look, I really appreciate it. And it's challenging for me to tell you to stop work, although I'm telling you that hire more assistants, hire whatever you do, but first pay attention, right? Because you can be burned out in 6 hours a day. You can be burned out at 10 hours a day of work, which I'm not convinced you're that productive anyways at 10 hours, but pay attention.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over time? So books, podcasts, courses, training, conferences?
Non-stop.
Yeah, good.
Right. There's no end. I am a real student of the productivity, as I was explaining before. I really care about how to be the most productive person you can be. I'm also very, very knowledgeable about politics and human rights and all the happy little lefty greeny stuff that are out there. So I'm deeply, so I read and learn all the time as much as I can, but I don't find podcasts, sorry, as
You're on a
effective
podcast now.
I know, but it's not, it doesn't work for me because it's not focused data, right? And it works for my VP, loves podcasts. Everybody loves podcasts. So this is not trashing podcasts. It just doesn't function as well for me because I need focus. I'm in the mood to learn this data. Please upload it. I wish we could upload to our brain. That's kind of the way my brain functions.
Have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
My brother.
Yep.
I had a very solid, successful businessman, always hang out and busting my chops.
Yep.
Right. And with no shame, one of the positive aspects of having your brother as a mentor instead of a stranger, that your brother
they won't hold back.
Does not afraid to tell you that you're ugly, right?
You're an ugly baby.
Right. So it's definitely was a powerful aspect, but I actually find that I got too comfortable with that because the fact that I had easy mentor, I did not go out of the way to search for new mentors out there, which is definitely a failure on my side. Yeah, no question about it.
And do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No. I have incredible team that I have built such level of trust that they call me out on my bullshit whenever it happens.
Good. All right, Sharon, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
The hardest thing in growing a business is the continuous challenge.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
It is Predictably Irrational.
Who's the author of that? Do you remember?
Dan Ariely.
Great.
I love that book.
Good.
It's a mental changing book. Yep. It makes you think about people in a different way. Go ahead.
Okay. I haven't read that one. I'm checking on the list right now. Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development? Obviously not podcasts for you, but any other online learning tools?
So I'm a big Audible kind of guy, right? I'm a huge Audible, and I'm also, I forgot the name, but I actually use one of those services that summarizes books when I just want to get to the point. I forgot the name.
Starts with N, doesn't it? Blinkist?
Blinkist. Thank you. Blinkist. Huge fan of Blinkist.
There we go. Great.
Yeah.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
One tool to grow. So Slack.
Yep. Final, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Yes. Get investors on day one. So, time is too precious. Time is too precious to waste time building a business in a bootstrap way.
I love that Chinese proverb. You better to have the tail of an elephant than the body of an ant. So I talk to that point when speaking with business owners, I find that they're equity precious. They think, no, I've got to hold on to 100% of the company. But if they were to sell off 20% early on to get the capital in to allow it to grow, particularly investing in the marketing, you could have something worth a lot more, even though you own 80% of it. That 80% could be a lot more worth value than the 100% of the ant.
I was really scarred from my first company because all the investment and everything, I didn't come out with much of it.
Mm.
But I should have not. And then I said, my second business, I'm going to bootstrap it. All the money that I get, I will reinvest and blah, 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 blah. No.
Yeah.
Right. I should have just tried again to do it the same way. I had a great idea. I could have been a really early adopter.
And the other thing, by taking on investment as well, particularly if they're professional investors, not one of the 3 Fs, friends, family, and fools, is that they hold you to account and want to know, what is going on with their money, and they're getting a return. So that lesson of keeping an eye on your numbers probably would have come home sooner if people are asking, I want to report every month or every 3 months on how are we tracking, how's the progress. That's the other benefit, I think, of taking on other people's money.
I agree. I concur. And unfortunately now, as a daddy that loves hanging out with the kids and a family man and everything, I have less luxury of taking shit from investors that I had 12 years ago, that I would be perfectly happy to do so. I was just a little scarred for my first company.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for your time today, Sharon. I think the audience get a shit ton of value out of what you've shared with us today and your journey, your 3 businesses, and DistantJob, great success, 1 FTE down up to 42 now in 12 years. That's phenomenal growth. And getting into the space well before COVID. I'm a big believer in remote work. I've got 4 or 5 of my own team members, Philippines and Pakistan, and I think they do a wonderful job, and totally agree with you that people who work remote are a lot more productive. So thank you for propagating that cause.
It is an absolute pleasure. And if you have remote people, read Surviving Remote Work, my book at Amazon. I think it's going to give you a different perspective than what you read in previous other books.
Yeah, I've just added that to my list. We'll link through it in the show notes as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Roy.
Thanks. That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.